This is the Caro Kann, and I'm going to show you guys a low level. This is like 800. I'm playing at like 850 right now. I'm a beginner, so this is a game for beginners. If you're a grandmaster, well, good for you. I'm not, and most of my audience is not either. So, the most common move, one of the most common moves, either pawn to king four or pawn to queen four. So, or also known as e4. So e4 is what my opponent opens with. So I'm going to play the Caro Kann. So I move the queen, bishop, pawn forward one space, or c6. He develops his knight. I move into the center with my queen pawn. This is called the advance, right? So this is the advance variation. So he advances his king pawn forward to the 5th rank. So that's going to cramp me. So I want to get my bishop out here so that it's not stuck on the bottom row. So I'm just going to get it out because that's going to be the bad bishop in that position, in my experience. He reinforces his pawn in the center. I form my little like pyramid castle kind of thing. If you've ever played the London, this is like kind of playing the London as black almost. So there's that. So that's a good way to think about it. And he continues to develop his pawn chain, which I think is interesting. So I don't really have a great place for my bishop, my black square bishop. So I'm going to fianchetto it, which means basically moving the pawn in front of the knight forward one, and then I'm going to move the I'm going to move from f8 to g7. I'm going to move the bishop into the spot that the pawn had occupied. He develops his bishop. I don't know why he puts it on that square. So I fianchetto. He starts to bring his knight over to protect his knight. I bring my knight to g6 or h6. And this is an unusual place for the knight because it doesn't really influence a lot of squares in this area. I could have moved it to e7 and probably should have, but what I'm preparing to do is castle, and then I'm going to move my f-pawn forward one to form a break with my knight, with my rook behind it, which will give me a safe place for the knight should I be challenged after I exchange my bishop, because he's going to threaten my bishop now. He takes with a knight. I castle. He starts to threaten my knight. So if I allow his g-pawn to move forward one more space, my knight is trapped. Therefore, I must start my attack now. So I move my f-pawn forward one. And then he, doesn't do anything aggressive. He's going to castle, I suppose. So he moves his bishop into fianchetto position. I take. He takes with the knight. I move my knight back, threatening his knight. So this is interesting. I did not expect him to do what he did next. I thought he would move his knight back to protect his castle, but he took my knight. So I took with a rook. Now I have a rook in an open file. Look at me. And he's going to castle into my rook. So I would have myself personally. I would have castled on the queen side if I were white. All right, I'm going to bring over another attacking piece. So I'm going to bring over my knight, and also this allows my queen and my rook to communicate on the back row, so they can kind of protect each other if necessary. He moves out his queen to get aggressive, but that really doesn't do anything because he can't operate on that diagonal on the king's side. I have pawns covering everything. And he can't operate on that diagonal to the queen's side because I have pawns covering everything. So bad move on his part. All right, I'm going to break here too. I noticed that I have the e5 square. I have 2 attackers. So if I move my pawn forward, I can exchange and threaten his queen. So he takes, and I take with my knight, threatening his queen. Now, there's really no safe place for him except to retreat. But he thinks, and this looks like a good move, maybe, that he could move his queen forward onto the black squares, and that way he will be able to infiltrate my pawn chain because all my pawns are on white squares except for the A pawn. But the problem with that is as soon as I move my knight, it's going to be a discovered check, I guess you would call it, on the queen from my bishop. So he takes his time, but eventually he does do that. And then I have a fork. I move my knight to F3, and I can threaten his king. So he has to respond to that by taking with the bishop or moving his king. And now I have time to capture his queen with my bishop. Now he captures back, which is fine because I can capture his white square bishop with my rook. He gets into the open file, which is usually a good strategy, but I'm going for the end game here. So I move my queen to H4, and I guess you guys can sort of see what's coming next. He moves his rook one square up. I don't get it. Maybe so he can retreat with his king if he needs to. I take a pawn, moving closer to the end. So he traps. So he, instead of giving himself a possible escape route, he moves his rook over. I put him in check. He moves, and it's game over. Anyway, I hope this helped you. I like studying these lower level games because that's where I am right now, and I like to see like who my opponents, what kind of mistakes they're going to make, because usually they don't play the main line. I don't memorize main lines either. So anyway, if you have any questions for me, put them in the comments. I'll see you on the next one, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.